Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and in my last video I had a lot of issues that were kind of unanswered, and I got a lot of good helpful comments from folks, and one comment that kept repeating was maybe I should do the firmware upgrade before I go out and try again, because that's what I'd been planning on doing. So I did the firmware upgrade, and then before I go fly out over no man's land, I like to make sure that everything's working. So I went to the park, and I am going through everything here to get everything set up and making sure everything is right. My return to home altitude is 150 feet because we have some high tension wires that if it's on the other side of those, well then I got to make sure that it goes over those. They're about 125 feet high. So there's a lady coming by, and I'm waiting for her to get past, and she's kind of looking at me like, "What are you doing here?" You know. But that's okay. So anyway, then finally I got everything set up, made sure it was going to work the way I wanted it to, and I was ready to take off. So here we go. And now remember, I'm not trying to make a video, but I thought I would share it with you. I'm just checking everything out. So making sure the gimbal travels all the way down and all the way up, plus the extra several degrees. There's two reasons for that, because the firmware upgrade, and also because in this video here, I'm using the number 8 ND filter. And excuse me, and so putting that on and taking it off is kind of hard on the gimbal, because it's so small and my fingers shake, so it gets a pretty rough treatment. So here I am just checking everything out, doing the left and right yaw. And that part seems to work fine. And so we get that all checked out, and oh yeah, that's right, I was going to go in and check, make sure the camera's set the way I want it to. So I stopped the recording. Well, first I tried to go in without stopping the recording, and you saw the little note that said you can't do that. So I went in, I got everything, made sure everything was set the way I wanted it, and the firmware upgrade doesn't always change everything, but it does change a few things. So here we go. Now this is my favorite park. I fly here. I fly here a lot, and I've flown here 100 times or more. Anyway, so at this park, generally I can fly from one end to the other when everything is good. But there's Wi-Fi's at both ends, houses with Wi-Fi's at both ends. And so there is quite a bit of interference. So one of the things that I often run into is when I get down here near the end, I lose signal. And there I'm checking out the map, because then I can see how close I can get to the to the edge of the park. And then I'm going to check one other thing, because when I get to the end, anytime when you're about to lose contact, if you turn the drone 90 degrees to the line of sight, you begin to lose signal strength. And in this particular case, it seems to be working pretty good. I hope it's like that because of the firmware upgrade, because it's doing just what I tell it to do, even though it's 90 degrees to the line of sight. And then the next thing, as soon as I close the map, the aircraft orientation display seems to be working just fine, and you can see that's 90 degrees to my line of sight. So we got all that stuff is checked out, so I decided, all right, let's go fly over the Queen Creek Wash. So because I'm not so much afraid that I'm going to lose my drone because of the firmware upgrade. So we're going to go down here, and I'm going to take you down and show you where I tried to take off last time, which is where all the broken up pieces of concrete are. Looks like a bunch of rocks when you fly up to it. And then I'll point out how I'm going to come from the left side, which is the north side, and try to make things work next time I go, which may be tomorrow or the next day. But I'm going to come from the north side and come down that road. That's a much better looking road than the one I came down for the other one. And there's those broken up pieces of concrete, look like rocks. All right, so that's the testing at the park. And then when I got home, it was later in the morning and it was warmer, but I wanted to check a couple of other things that I was concerned about when I went to the park. So I took it off from my backyard here and decided, all right, let's just check things out. And I did a lot of hovering, as you will see. And the Mavic Mini does not have a fan. It counts on air movement through the fuselage as you move forward through the air. And I wasn't. The first thing I did, I didn't check the temperature. And as you'll see what the temperature actually is. And I didn't even think about it. I just wanted to check out my Mavic Mini and see if everything was working. The things that I missed when I was at the park. And so those are trumpet vines, and they kind of bloom all year long. I don't think, well, it's like they're always blooming, and so they make a nice decor type of a thing. And then I swung around to this tree and looking at it and all the rocks piled around it and everything. And I decided I'd play with the ISO and the amount of white balance. And as you can see down in the lower right-hand corner here, I'm messing around with it, seeing how much difference it makes as for the contrast and brightness. Then I did a little more flying around, and that tree has grown. It's about twice as tall as it was when we moved in here 3 years ago. And it's turning out to be a pretty nice looking tree, and we had a beautiful blue sky today. And then here in Arizona, it costs a lot of money to water grass, so most houses we just put gravel in. And I'm sorry about the dog poop. But anyway, we just put gravel in. Now here coming up is something that came as a surprise. All right, so the signal from the Mavic Mini stopped transmitting, and I had to happen one other time because it was way up in the sky straight above me and the antennas were pointed at each other, and so I lost the signal coming from the Mavic. I couldn't understand why I lost it. It was like maybe 15, 20 feet away from me. I should not have lost the transmitted signal. But keep in mind that a receiver doesn't generate any heat, whereas a transmitter generates a lot of heat. And when I worked at the commercial radio station and the great big transmitter we had, the tubes got so hot that they turned red. The filaments inside the tubes turned red. And we had to, we had a system to keep air blowing on them. But the Mavic Mini has a transmitter that streams the video from the drone down to the controller. And we had high temperatures that I didn't even think about. And so I went out and flew and hovered. Now, if I'd have been moving around, this may not have happened. But you can see that it was 86.1 degrees at the time that this took place. And 86 degrees in Arizona with the sun coming straight down on you almost. Everything gets hot. Metal gets hot to the touch. So I can't blame the Mavic Mini for its transmitter overheating, and probably has a preventive system in it to keep it from burning up. So at the point that this was taking place, I really didn't understand what was going on. But so I brought it in and hand landed it, and then I put another battery in. By the way, the battery was hot to the touch, and so I took that battery out, put another battery in, and in the meantime, it was getting warmer outside the whole time. And so, but I wanted to see what would happen. After I got to thinking about it, I came back out with a new battery and started running a test where I wasn't hovering out in the sun. So here's the second flight. And there's my little puppy dog. And you notice about 1.5 degrees hotter than it was in the first flight. But I'm going to do something different this time because I can't move around much in the yard. So I'm going to take my little Mavic Mini over in the shade next to me and snuggle up close to it. and I ran it from a full battery down to 20%. I don't know how many minutes. I can't remember now. But anyway, it's like 15 or 20 minutes or so. And just let it sit there and run. And because it was in the shade, it stayed cool enough that it didn't die. So I learned, don't go flying when it's 80 plus degrees with my Mavic Mini. So I want to thank you for watching, and God bless.